Okay, in the third paragraph, who is referred to as our brother? Very difficult question. So we have 4 potential people, and right now we're trying to find the person at fault. Okay, so it says, Adaka had to shout occasionally to remind the farmers and fishermen why they were going to Bombay. So Adaka, we know, is the leader. His voice was getting so coarse, one of the older men finally tugged at his shirt, hanging over, sit down, son, sit for a while. So we know that the older fisherman is talking to Adaka because Adaka is shouting and he's screaming to stop the other men from screaming. And then we know that sit down and have a little rest. We want Adaka to save his voice because evidently his voice is getting very, very hoarse. Give our brother some tea to drink. There we go. So we know that we're referring to Adaka. It's not to the old fisherman because one of the older fishermen is the one who's actually telling him to drink the tea. So it can't be the older fisherman. It's obviously not Hari because Hari is just sitting in the corner. Oh, sorry. It's not the old fisherman. It's not Hari. The answer is Adaka. Okay? Right? Because we don't want him to waste his energy. Cool, let's move on. In the 4th paragraph, the writer suggests that Hari is feeling what? Worried about finding some food to eat, lonely amongst so many strangers, angry about what happened in Thule, unsure about whether he should have come. So I think the key word here is unsure. He's not really angry, okay? The key word is unsure, and we broke that down earlier, right? Because remember, when he's asking himself rhetorical questions, he is really just questioning whether or not it was the right decision to come out or not. Okay, so we figured that out very early on. And that's also why you should always figure out the emotion when you're noting up the passage. Okay, so always figure out the emotion. Look at the sentence beginning. It was only out of the corner. The length and structure of this sentence helps create the impression that Hari is what? It was only out of the corner. So if we look up here, it says it was only out of the corner of his eye that he saw before being pushed on. So in other words, he had very limited vision. Very, very limited vision. Okay, so this is where we have another potential decoy. Terrified of getting lost in the chaos of Bombay. A lot of you guys might choose A because, yeah, possibly. He could get really scared of getting lost in the chaos of Bombay. Now let me explain why the answer is not A. This is called an over-extrapolation. In other words, it's kind of like a manipulation of modality. So in the passage, we know that he can't see anything. He can only see things in the corner of his eye. From that, we over-extrapolate, or we change the modality from something that is rather mild to something very, very negative that he can't see at all, or perhaps that he's getting terrified. You know what I mean? So it was only slightly negative. And then now we have completely changed it, right? We made it very negative, that he's absolutely terrified. This is what I mean by manipulating modality. So be aware, you always want to match up the modality. So if you have something that's slightly negative, match it up with something that is also slightly negative. Don't go overboard and change it up completely, okay? So terrified is just too strong compared to what we have in the passage. Difficulty seeing things because of the crowds. Okay, that could also be it. Difficulty seeing things. Now, the issue that we have is because of the crowds. Was it due to the crowds? Okay, that's a key question that we need to ask. Was it difficulty seeing things due to the crowds? Okay, if we look here, it says such a great hurry as villagers had never seen before. It was only out of the corner of his eye that he saw briefly before being pushed on. Now, you could very much make the implication that it was due to the crowds they could only see out of the corner of his eye. But here, we don't really know if the crowds are the cause of the fact that it was only out of the corner of his eye. Because as you guys can see, it was only out of the corner of his eye he saw before being pushed on. So we know afterwards he's being pushed on, but we don't know that being pushed on was the cause of him only being able to see out of the corner of his eye. Does that make sense? So it's like correlation, not causation. So here we can put a question mark around it. It could definitely be the option, but we want to find something that we can conclude that is within the scope of of the passage, right? B is slightly outside the scope of the passage just because of the crowds. Can barely register all the sights one after another. That is it. Why? Because if it's only out of the corner of his eye, he can't see everything. And really what we're saying here in C is that he can barely register all the sights. And that's true. He can't register all the sights. He can only see out of the corner of his eye. So C works out really well. He's worried about being pushed over. That's not referring to a sight. So that's why C is a better option than B. Because whenever you need to over-imply, what happens is you go beyond the meaning of the text, right? And that's not what we want to do. We always want to stay within the confines or scope of the text. If we have to over-imply, then we are moving into dangerous territory. So just be aware of over-implying. Never ever put yourself in a situation where you're over-implying. Or for example, with the word terrified, we don't know that. Like, how can we imply that? We just don't know enough just from it was out of the corner. So just be aware of over-implying or a change in modality. So those are just two things that you should always be aware of. Okay, you do that. We already know what this is about. This is about the mockery. Okay, so remember we talked about mockery earlier. What's going on? He's not sympathizing. He's not expressing doubt. He's making fun of them. Okay, very easy. At one point in the passage, question 7, at one point in the extract, the writer explicitly. Okay, so keyword here is explicitly. So it can't be implicitly. Contrasts what? What does he explicitly contrast? Now, a lot of you guys might think of implicit contrasts, right? Which is not good. You know, the police in Bombay, we don't have any mention of that behavior of the fishermen to that of the farmers. Now, again, we definitely have information of the fishers, but we don't have any information about farmers. So that's what we can kind of eliminate. The commotion in Bombay and the quiet of Thul, yes. Remember what we talked about? We said that there was definitely a big difference between, you know, the city and countryside. Okay, big difference between city and countryside. So it says here, in all his life, he'd never seen so much traffic. In Thul, there was only the occasional bus and very rarely a single dusty car. And now this was something that's completely different. Okay, midst of terrifying traffic. So we have explicitly a comparison between the commotion in Bombay and the quiet of Thul. There we go. People in the docks, people on the streets, not really, because it's all bustling, it's all crazy. Comparing the beginning to the end of the extract, what change occurs? Morning goes to evening, the group goes from united to being divided. Again, what's going on? Comment down below, guys. Morning goes to evening. What we need to do in this case is we just need to go through breaking each one down. So morning to evening, we don't have any evidence. United to divided, yes, you could make the argument for that, but still, they're kind of in a group because Mahe and Hari are still together. Makes sense? The other thing that we know is that he clutched the arm of the man next to him and alarmed. They're still kind of together, so it's not really that they're completely separate. So that's not it. Hari goes from overjoyed to anxious. Hari was not really overjoyed at the very beginning. He's definitely anxious towards the end, but it wasn't like he was overjoyed at the very beginning. So here we have a two-part emotion question. Hari at the very beginning, when he was already on the boat, was angry, okay? If you read here, it says he had undertaken without thinking simply because he had been upset and angry and simply could not live another day until the old way. So he wasn't overjoyed at all. And this is where you just got to be careful. The other people were overjoyed. And this is again where, you know, if you guys have very selective memory, you might have automatically paired Hari with overjoyed, but he wasn't. He was kind of silent all throughout the trip. He was quite worried as well all throughout the trip. And so he's definitely not good. Perception of Bombay from perfect. Yes, at the very beginning, it's like glistening, right? It's beautiful. It's like this glistening paradise of riches and beauty. And towards the end, we see that they're being made fun of by the policemen. We see that they're being made fun of by basically everyone. They're not very welcome there. It says, Hari and his companion moved on very hurt and offended. You would be offended if you are in a hostile environment. And they also make the comment that they're the rudest people on earth. Okay, cool, excellent. Very, very good. Okay, now I'm looking at the timer. We're at the 37-minute mark. So I think what we'll do is we'll go through the poem as well. And then after this, I think I'm going to do a part 2. because I don't think we can get through the entire thing so far. Comment down below if you found the video helpful so far. I think all of these things in terms of decoys are the main things that you need to be aware of, okay? Fiction, the passage is quite easy to understand. I don't think that should be too difficult. It's just managing time. But when you're answering the questions, there are just so many decoys, so many difficult questions to be aware of, okay? So many, different cognitive biases. Now, obviously, I prepared some more slides, cognitive biases and stuff like that, but because we're running short on time, I can't show you guys that. I might do a video though. So if you do leave me a comment down below if you want to see the cognitive biases slides, and I'll show you guys. Cool, now we're gonna go to Bruce Dorr and we're gonna talk about drifters. Okay, so one day soon, he'll tell her it's time to start packing and the kids will yell truly. Whenever we approach poetry, there are a couple of things to be aware of. Number one, we need to figure out the structure of a poem. And so there are two things that you need to be aware of. Number one, division. Number two, unity, okay? Generally speaking, there are poems that are very well structured and that, they have a rhythm, a rhyme that kind of repeats itself, or you could have a free-flowing piece of poem with no conventional pattern, okay? Things to look out for: structure, stanzas, okay? Look at the amount of lines that you have in each stanza. In terms of pattern, look at the rhyme scheme and the meter, rhyme rhythm, and the organization. Cool.